Guten Tag und willkommen to my first Germany 1871 to 1990 vlog. This is a unit which spans all the way from the creation of Germany in 1871, the formation of modern Germany in 1871, all the way through the story of Germany, past the First and Second World Wars, all the way up to its reunification at the end of the Cold War in 1990, spanning 5 depth topics and then 2 breadth topics of social and economic focus. We're going to start by looking today at the first of the depth topics, well, the first part of the first depth topic. And in fact, we're going to start by looking at just before the first of the depth topics. The first depth topic looks at Bismarck and his leadership of Germany as Chancellor between 1871 and 1879. But I think it's quite helpful to have an idea about how Germany arrived in 1871 on the scene in Europe and what it was that Bismarck in particular had done to get it to that position. So this part of the narrative is not on the course as such, but it does help us understand the situation of Germany and also something of the sort of character and qualities that Bismarck brings to his job as Chancellor from 1871. Germany, looking back in the course of history, hadn't really existed as Germany before, but it certainly existed kind of as well. The states of Germany had existed for a long time, and they had loosely tied together in what's called the First Reich in history, or the Holy Roman Empire. This had been founded in the 9th century by Charlemagne and existed all the way through to 1806, when Napoleon was instrumental in undoing it in the Napoleonic Wars. However, the First Reich, the Holy Roman Empire, was replaced in 1815 with at the Congress of Vienna with what was called the German Confederation. And this was more of a loose associative group of the Germanic states, Prussia, Austria, and the little states in between, the 38 little states, small states, we should probably call them, under the nominal presidency of Austria. So they weren't one country. They were a bit more like the European Union, I suppose, working together and allying. And there were lots of ties to bring them together, cultural ties, linguistic ties. The common language was spoke across these states. In 1848, there were actually uprisings by liberal nationalists who wanted to create Germany, and they rose up in several cities, including Berlin, and established what's called the Frankfurt Assembly in Frankfurt, and used what's now known as not now seen as the German flag, the red, black and gold flag, and they proclaimed a German union, but they were undone by Austria, which was not in favour of liberal progressive nationalism at all. So there were cultural and linguistic ideas bringing them together, also economic. From the 1830s, there's a customs union, which is actually led by Prussia and actually excludes Austria. So this is probably the start. They're called the Zollverein, the customs union, Zollverein. These ties had created certainly a sense of association and a sense of working together. But it wasn't really until the early 1860s that this idea for creating a German state emerged. And that was really the brainchild of 2 men. Firstly, Kaiser Wilhelm I of Prussia, who started that planning really back as far as 1861, not that far at all. And he appointed Otto von Bismarck as his minister-president in Prussia and what would become the Chancellor of Germany. They decided that the way that Prussia was going to put together Germany would have to be through military force. And so they expand the army. Prussia's position within the sort of German Union was already that it was the kind of the economically most developed country there, but it was not militarily seen as the strongest. And I guess also coming out of it, there's a slight sort of fear of Austrian dominance, and both the Kaiser and Bismarck want to make sure that Prussia is the dominant feature in any kind of German union or Germany as it emerges. And so there are three wars which they use to, or Bismarck actually uses to manipulate this into being. And the first one is in 1864. Christian IX of Denmark handily provides this war for Bismarck. He tries to absorb Schleswig and Holstein, which are at the base really of what is now Denmark, and that they're at the base of Denmark. I don't know what it's called really, the bit of Denmark that sticks up out of Europe. Schleswig and Holstein had been sort of Danish satellite states for a while, but Christian IX wanted to absorb them properly into the kingdom, and they were a bit reluctant to go along with that. So Austria and Prussia ride together as allies to the defence of Schleswig and Holstein, decisively defeat Denmark, and take one each. So Austria administrates Holstein, and Prussia administrates Schleswig. So point number one, Prussia here triumphant and show off their military prowess. 2 years later, a dispute emerged over the running of Schleswig and Holstein. It was felt that Austria are a bit more kind of laissez-faire, Prussia are a bit more kind of like perhaps hands-on, and disputes arose over like what that meant and what communication Prussia were trying to put across to the Holsteiners. Anyway, it leads to what becomes known as the 6 Weeks' War, in which Prussia defeated Austria, and this was kind of the key turning point. I guess they defeated them in a battle at Sadowa, which is just east of Prague. They also defeated Saxony, Hesse, and Hanover, and established themselves as the military power in Central Europe. At the peace treaty, Prussia picked up Schleswig and Holstein and Hanover, but also established the North German Confederation. That now really all of the northern parts of Germany were now under their authority. However, the southern states were not, and partly perhaps because they were more Catholic leaning. Certainly Bavaria is more Catholic leaning, although places like Baden and Wittenberg had quite a strong Protestant heritage as well. Partly probably because they were just suspicious of being overwhelmed, dominated by Prussia, and were traditionally kind of more Austro-focused. And now that Austria was weakened, they sort of looked to France for protection and support. And in 1870, the ideal opportunity arose for Bismarck to change this. He manipulated a war with France, basically kind of using a fabricated or embellished telegram, manages to get France, it's all to do with an insult that's supposed to have been said between them, and they're behind closed doors, it's made public. France ends up declaring war on Prussia, confident of victory. Bismarck has suckered them into it. He's already made sure that no one else is going to get involved. And he then establishes that Prussia are the dominant force not only in Central Europe but in Europe. He defeats France very quickly. He through Treaty of Versailles, Treaty of Paris, what it's called. They gain Alsace and Lorraine for Germany, and those southern states, Baden, Wittenberg, and Bavaria, also agree to join what becomes the unified Germany. So this is 1871, and there's quite a big debate about to what extent Bismarck strategized all this. And I think it used to be the case that historians said, "Oh, he's planned this for years in advance," and then historians kicked against that. Revisionist historians said, "Oh, there's no planning involved at all." And historians have kind of settled into an interpretation now which suggests that actually Bismarck had plans, that he planned probably in a short-term way, but that above all he was kind of a master manipulator of events, that he was able to see and strategically take advantage of positions which allowed him to put together a Germany in which Prussia was the dominant force. And that's key to remember, actually, that this is not about him wanting Germany because he's German and feels so German about things. He is putting together Germany very much under the auspices of being led by Prussia and dominated by Prussia. And that's key to remembering when we start to look at what he does to run Germany in the 1870s next time. See you then. Auf Wiedersehen.